quick, they want easy, they want simple, and they want fast results, right? They want fast results. And I would say that the reality is that those two bullets right there are probably the single two biggest elements of what make a solution attractive. The easier and quicker something is to implement and the faster the results that it produces, the more attractive the solution is. The more attractive the solution is. This is why when it comes to quick and easy to implement, this is why in the training, coaching, consulting world, the more that something can be positioned as done for you or done with you, the more of the work that can be done for them, the closer that you can get to done for you, the more attractive the solution becomes. Right? That's the reality, right, wrong, or indifferent. And the reason why is because faith and belief in the result, in the confidence in the outcome increases, right? It increases because the more things that they have to do themselves, the more likely they are to screw it up. The more steps there are to something that I have to do on my own, the greater the likelihood of me screwing something up. The less that I have to do, and the more that's done for me by the pros, by the experts, by the creators, whatever, then the more confidence I have in being able to get the result. And the more confidence I have in being able to get the result, the more attractive the solution looks to me, right? And so when you've got something that, right, it solves a big problem, and right, it solves a significant problem in my life that I want resolved, and it produces a big result, a big desirable outcome, transformation, and it does it in a way that is new, is a replacement to the old, right? And something that I see as it's unique, it's different from anything that I've tried before. And I believe that it is superior in producing results, and it produces quick and easy results, and it produces fast results. And there's a portion which at least can be positioned as done for you, or is done for me, so to speak, right? And I have a high level of success. You have an extremely attractive solution. And then when you take that extremely attractive solution and then you wrap it in an irresistible proposition by, again, like making the terms a no-brainer, guarantee, risk reversal, the premiums to fill in any gaps, you've got something that people leap at. And so this is the kind of stuff I'm sharing this with you here because I just want you to understand the thinking, the mindset, right? And so the beauty in the agency world, the beauty in the coaching, consulting, information product, course creation world is that we get to sit back and we get to engineer and re-engineer solutions all the time. And the reality is, from a marketing perspective, is you want a solution that is as attractive as possible. I'll also tell you that the more attractive the solution is, the higher the price point can be. The less attractive, the lower the price point has to be, period. End of the story, right? And so the more attractive the solution, the more valuable the solution. The more attractive solution, the easier the conversion process is. A more attractive solution will even make up for weaknesses in the proposition, right? And when you combine an attractive solution with an irresistible proposition, you've got the best of both worlds. Now, I'll tell you, just to put a final kind of bow on this, right? I told you guys earlier that at the beginning of our day that, right, the single best thing, the single most valuable use of your time really is in offer creation. I'll tell you that this is where I would put the lion's share of my effort when it comes to new offers. Is I would engineer, I would identify through ongoing examination, I would identify significant problems that the market has that I believe that we can solve. Then what I would do is I would create and engineer an attractive solution. I would hit as many of these as I possibly could. And then I would take that and then I would wrap it in an irresistible proposition. I would form or create or engineer the most irresistible no-brainer proposition that I possibly can that would make it harder for the prospect to say no than to say yes. Like I would make it that good, that much of a no-brainer. And then starting with that bad boy, then I would go and I would engineer the copy, because the job now of the copy is so much easier thanks to how good the offer is. And so that is the offer solution, Now, I want to talk about decisions and making decisions. And I want to give you kind of the streamlined approach and then the more in-depth approach. These are decisions that need to be made before you can write any copy. And so number one, what I call the bare bones big three, based on the examination. So based on prospects, competitors, and the product, based on our examination, based on what it is that we now know, based on what it is that I shared with you, at a bare minimum, bare bones, there are three things that I need to know at the very beginning before I start writing any copy. Number one, what is the targeted problem that I'm going to address? What is that problem? What is the pain associated with it? And so that's number one, bare minimum. You need to know that. Number two is, what is the primary promise? What's that big overarching outcome of result transformation that I'm going to present with specific, concrete, tangible, measurable language? And then three is process or the unique mechanism. So I did this these three P's just for you to remember it, but think of the problem, the promise, and the process being the mechanism. And so what is the mechanism by which I am going to fulfill that promise and alleviate that problem? These are the bare bones big three that you need to know, that you need to be clear on at the very beginning, right? What's the problem, the pain associated with it? What's the promise, the outcome, right? The result, the transformation, and what's the process that we're going to give them or use with them to deliver that promise and alleviate that problem. Those are the big three. You want to dive deeper into this. Here are the questions that we answer at the beginning. And you've heard me say this in some form or fashion, a number of different ways today already. What's the problem that you're going to solve? Number two, what are the core benefits that you're going to focus on? So what are the core, the core results, the core outcomes, the core changes, the core improvements to the prospect's life based on what it is that we know about the prospect, right? What are we going to focus on? What are the core emotions that we're going to prod, which we're going to talk about, right? What are the emotions, the buying emotions that we're going to push, that we're going to prod throughout? Are we going to use, fear of missing out? Are we going to use, exclusivity or a sense of belonging? Are we going to prod, what are the emotions that we're going to prod, which we're going to talk about? Are we going to talk about greed, all that? What's the idea hook that we're going to use? And so what's the theme, the idea behind the campaign? What's the unique mechanism? What are the objections, concerns, beliefs, which I need to address, right? So what are the beliefs, the concerns, and the objections that I need to address? Now, this is a strategic thing here. Like, this is how you identify this is less of a copy thing and more of a strategic thing. But what I want you to understand is this, that the aim of our copy is really to override the misbeliefs, the objections, the concerns, and to replace them with what it is that we need the prospect to believe, right? In other words, we're going to correct the misbeliefs. We're going to correct or eliminate the objections and replace them with the beliefs that we need the prospect to have to want to buy. And you'll see me unpack this for you tomorrow and give you examples of how I use copy to overcome certain misbeliefs or certain objections or certain concerns to lead the prospect to see that our solution is the smartest one for them. What's the vision that I'm going to create for the after state? So when I said, like, what does life look like for your prospect after they solve the problem, after they're using your what does life look like after the problem is solved with your solution, with your mechanism, with your framework, with your approach, with your methodology, with your formula, whatever it is, right? What is that after state? Remember, we are the director of the movie in the mind of the prospect. We're creating mental images, pictures. What are those mental images of what life can look like after the problem is solved thanks to our solution? And so what is that vision? What does that look like? That also comes from that examination. What does the prospect want? The prospect is here. They want to go here. What does here look like? What are they hearing? What are they seeing? What are they tasting? What are they touching, right? All that. What does their life look like after? Because that's the vision that we are going to create for them. And we're going to tie that vision to solving the problem with our solution. And so what is that vision? What's the prospect's core emotion about the problem? I already talked to you guys about what is that general emotional state of the prospect coming into the campaign. So based on the type of problem, which bucket is it an unresolved, is it unresolved distress? Is it an unfulfilled desire? What is the core emotion that the prospect has coming in? Are they excited? Are they stoked? Or are they dejected? Is it negative? And this is an important thing. Like, I want you to understand. So, so check this out. So I want you to understand this one question for 1 second before we go on. So, I've seen this mistake where, there are a lot of different types of campaigns, a lot of different lead types, like they're certainly like, there's fear-based, a fear-based campaign, for example. And what I've seen marketers, I've seen entrepreneurs that they'll see a campaign out there in the world, out in the wild, that worked really well for a particular product or service. And let's say it's fear-based, right? Like the end of America, right? And they think, wow, like, man, that is, that thing worked like gangbusters. Let me take that fear-based promotion, that fear-based approach, and let me use it in my world. And they take that fear-based approach and they bring it into their world. And let's say, as an example, they end up with some fear-based promotion about learning to play piano. Like, what? Huh? You know what I mean? Like, where did that even come from? Right? Like, see, that is a disconnect with how the prospect feels. Why would you use a fear-based promotion when somebody's interested in learning piano, when something is an unfulfilled desire and they're coming in a positive, excited mental state, and they're looking forward to this new hobby and they're looking forward to learning this new skill and showing off. And all of a sudden you're like, like you're, the whole your future happiness is about to fall apart if you don't learn how to play piano. Like, what in the world are you doing? And I see that more than you could believe. I see that, right? That is a misunderstanding of the core emotion that your market has coming in, right? You don't try to use a fear-based promotion unless you're talking to people that already have fear about the topic at hand. Right? Like, you don't use a fear-based, you don't start off negative when you're talking to people that are coming in positive. You don't start off positive when people are coming in fear-based. You know what I mean? Like, you don't start off all happy-go-lucky if you're talking to people that are terrified that their new diabetes diagnosis is going to ruin their life. Right? Like, you don't start off, you got to understand the core emotion that people have coming in. And so what is their general emotional state coming in? Next is, what is the buying belief that we need to establish in the mind of the prospect before going into the offer? And I'm going to break this down for you in another 2 slides because this is critically important. I always start out, and I want you to start out before you write any copy, knowing where you are going to lead your prospects. What is the one belief that you are going to establish in their mind? The aim of your marketing, the aim of your body copy, the aim of your argument, right? Right? What is the one belief that you need prospects to have before you go into your offer so they jump at your offer, so they see it as the smart decision, right? See, understand, and this is something that, we'll talk about in just a little bit. I told you this already. Everything that I do and say and show and present and demonstrate is done and there for a reason. There is a strategic purpose behind everything that I do. When I start off understanding these things. What is the problem that we're going to solve, right? What are the benefits that we're going to focus on? What are the core emotions that I'm going to prod? And everything that I do fills in one or more of these, right? So everything that I say is either in there to demonstrate how we're going to solve the problem, to demonstrate how it alleviates the fear, to demonstrate the outcome that they can expect, the positive outcome, the benefit, to prod an emotion, to show what makes this different, to show what makes this superior, right? Like, everything that is done for a purpose. And you're going to understand in just a couple slides how all of that can be summed up in one belief. so that ultimately everything that we do and say and show in the copy is there to lead your prospects to that one belief. And so, right, that I call it the buying belief, and we engineer that, like we formulate what's called a campaign thesis, which we'll do in a second. This is, just a simple list of, and this is right, like there are more emotions than this, but at the end of the day, right, this is like, what are the emotions that you're ultimately going to prod throughout your campaign? Now, I want to just talk a little bit about this for 1 second, that like, this is another thing. It goes back to, you've got to understand, people overthink, and I want you to listen to me here. People overthink this emotion, the emotional stuff as it relates to the kind of the buying emotions, if you will. They overthink it, and they get way too in the like they get lost in here. What I want you to think about is, as it relates to your product, your solution, and the transformation, the alleviation of the problem, the alleviation of the pain, and the result, the after state that it produces, what are the emotions that are tied to that? Right. And so what are the emotions that are tied to that? Like, if you're teaching people piano, let's say, is anger anywhere in that realm? Is there any aspect of learning to play piano that is tied to anger in any way? Can we leverage anger to help sell more piano lessons? Right? I would have to say no, likely not, unless we're talking to individuals that, got swindled by, some prior, piano teacher or something like that. The answer is no. If we're talking to, let's say, the Grandpa Kurtz, the 55 plus white men conservative, right? And this is, the Democrats are trying to keep you from profiting from the most valuable investments on Wall Street. Here's how to strike back. Right now, you've got you've got anger, right, which is they're trying to keep you from benefiting. Same thing with, if there was like the alternative health space, anger towards the pharmaceutical industry. And so can we leverage that in there? Like, can we leverage that anger? Well, some anger may exist if they believe that, and we can demonstrate that they're trying to keep you from the most effective natural remedies because it doesn't help them to make money. And so, right. So see how it's more of a natural fit. Is there, let's say, in piano lessons, is there any what was I going to say? Is there any tie to guilt and shame? Likely not. And like, look, my point is that there are some emotions that are just natural fits. Right? Like, there are some emotions that are natural fits. There might be, let's say, in business development, like in business, growth, right? I know that I can prod greed. I know I can prod belonging and exclusivity. I know I can prod pride. I know I can prod envy. Those are all emotions that I can prod in there. I probably could tap into anger if I wanted to, or fear if I wanted to. I personally don't like tapping into fear and anger. It's just not my style. It's not what I want to, put out into the world, but I certainly could. But I know that, right, greed fits, belonging, exclusivity fits, pride fits, and envy fits, right? And so I'm going to leverage those. But if those aren't natural fits, don't try to make them fit. Right. That's the same mistake of the piano, program, trying to, like, how can I do a fear-based promotion? Right. Like, why would you do a fear-based promotion for something that has nothing to do with fear? Why would you do an anger-based promotion that has nothing to do with anger, where there's no anger that exists? Why would you try to do why would you try to leverage guilt and shame when you're selling piano lessons? Or like, like you're selling a fishing lure. Are you're going to sell it based on guilt and shame? You know what I mean? Like, you might leverage a little bit of, of like, don't be embarrassed in front of your friends as they're landing the big bass and you're coming home with nothing, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. But, the point is that look for the natural fits. Don't try to force it. That's what a lot of ridiculous copy. When I say ridiculous, I just mean unbelievable copy that doesn't have an impact because it is it's a stretch, it's overzealous, is copy that tends to or tries to leverage emotions that are just not the right fit, and they make leaps from what their product does to certain benefits. Like a couple weeks ago on our team marketing call, and I'm not sure if Chris is on here. So Chris Cole is a member of our team, and so Chris was on this call. We looked at a promotion for a graphic design piece of software. Like a graphic design piece of software. It was a new software, graphic design. And it was so outlandish because this guy was saying, right, with this graphic design software, you will get endless sales or something like that. I don't remember the exact verbiage. But it was like, right, this, there was a new way of creating graphics with this all-in-one graphic design app or something like that. And this guy was tying to this all-in-one graphics app, this idea of finally, like grow your business rapidly, get endless traffic and endless buyers, like finally generate the sales that you deserve. How the heck did you make a leap from a graphic design software all the way to sales? That is an example, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, of overreaching. That is, there was a question asked earlier about like how deep do you go, like how, at one point on one of our calls, Teddy Garcia, our chief technology officer, he even asked, like, well, when do you stop peeling back the onion? Like, when do you, because you could say you graphic design, you create better ads. And what does that do for you? That gets more attention. What does that do for you? It gets more clicks. And what does that do for you? It drives more traffic to your website. And what does that do for you? Well, it could get you more leads, or it could get you more sales. It could get, like, where do you draw the line? You draw the line when we're going to talk about this tomorrow. You draw the line when there is other stuff that plays a role. Like, more attractive ads, like, look, you can't say that more attractive ads are going to get you more leads, right? Because maybe you've got a crap opt-in page. You can't say that simply having more nicer graphics in your ads are gonna give you endless sales. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous reach. It's a ridiculous stretch, right? You're leaping from one thing all the way to something else, right? Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I see that time and time again with emotions being prodded, right? And thinking that, like, the more of these emotions that I can use, the better. That's true when they are appropriate. And I'll tell you, just to make a note of this thing, that fear is the most powerful emotion on this list. So fear is the most powerful emotion on this list. However, what I will tell you is this, that fear-based promotions tend to be either boom or bust, right? They either work really well or they do not work at all. Fear-based promotions can be extremely tough, not my style, right? And, I'm willing to sacrifice the result that we can get from fear-based promotions because I just don't want to add that. Like, I just don't want to do that. But the reality is that they tend to be boom or bust. Very similar to, by the way, just for what it's worth, and we're going to talk a little bit tomorrow about storytelling and the right way to do it and how to avoid a bold story and blah, 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 and all this, like some cool tricks. But the reality is that, and this is something for you guys to just grasp and write down. There a lot of people talk about, rightly so, they talk about the power of story in marketing. And they talk about the power of a story-based lead or story-based promotions, and how they can be wildly effective. And they can be wildly effective. Absolutely. When done right, they can be wildly effective. The reality is, though, is that similar to fear-based promotions, story-based promotions also tend to be either boom or bust, meaning that when they're done right and it's dialed, they can do extremely well. But when it's off the mark, even just a little bit, it's a dud. And so this is why I tend to not use story-based promotions. Is that because they're not effective? Oh, they're wildly effective. It's the odds, right? The reality is that the odds of it being spot on, like it's the hardest type of campaign to create and create well, I should say, right? It's the hardest effective campaign or hardest effective copy to create. With a story-based promotion, your prospect has to be able, first of all, it has to be believable. It has to be interesting. It has to be compelling. It has to lead to the establishment of certain beliefs, thoughts, recognition. The prospect has to be able to see themselves in the story, right? It takes a lot of skill to tell a good story the right way in marketing. That's why you're going to see when I show you in just a second, I have a go-to lead structure, the way that I open up almost all of our campaigns, not all, but the majority, especially front-end campaigns, and it is not story-based and it is not fear-based. And so I'm going to show you in just a bit. So here, I'm going to go through this quickly, just because we're going to talk a little bit about this more tomorrow tactically. But you've got to recognize that. Remember when I said, like, with in copy, and this is right, like this is a lot of stuff today. Told you this is a lot of stuff, and I'm still I really just passed about the 55% mark of the slides for today. And so a lot. And you don't need to remember all of this. So I have no fear. But remember when I said that there are, when it comes to the offer, what does the prospect need to give and what do they get? Right. Well, there are perceived risks that prospects have when buying. And it's not just financial loss. There are risks associated with the loss of face, reputation, identity, character. There's loss of time. There's inconvenience, work, effort, energy. There's the potential for hassle or intimidation. Are you now going to call me? Are you going to send stuff to me in the mail? Are you going to sell my information to somebody else? There's of course the risk of unsatisfactory results, meaning I won't get what was promised. And even though there might be a guarantee, the guarantee is typically financial. And so it doesn't cover the loss of time. It doesn't cover the loss of face. It doesn't cover the potential hassle or intimidation. It doesn't cover the inconvenience, the work, the energy, the effort. It just potentially replaces the financial aspect. And so there's the fear of a risk of unsatisfactory results. And then there is disappointment and frustration. Disappointment with the fact that the problem still exists, right? So I tried your thing. I spent money on it. There's potential financial loss there, depending on the guarantee. There is this, I'm embarrassed. I look like an idiot in front of my spouse. I wasted hours every week over the last handful of weeks. Man, this was a pain in the butt. I had to go out and buy certain tools and blah, blah, blah. I had to learn XYZ, right? I haven't gotten any sales calls from you, but I'm afraid I may. I didn't get the results that I wanted. And now I'm pissed because I'm right back in the same situation I was a month ago. These are things that you got to be aware of, right? Because we are going to show or demonstrate, we're going to alleviate as much of these as we possibly can. We want to lessen these as much as we can, right? And so we want to lessen the fear of loss of face. We want to show the opposite. We want to show the insignificant time. We want to show the ease of implementing. We want to show them that there is no reason to be intimidated by this process, by this opportunity. And so these are things that you've got to recognize, because it's not just the financial. Remember, it's not what stops people from buying isn't just the financial. So understand that this is, you can lead somebody to see that you've got the best solution, the solution to solve their problem, better than any other method, mechanism, system, framework out there. But if they're still like, what about my, I'm afraid I'm risking my time, I'm risking my convenience, with the work I've got to do, I'm risking, am I going to be overwhelmed, like intimidated by this thing, right? Am I going to get hassled afterwards? Am I really going to get the result? That's all confident. These are things we have to address in the copy. And so I think a question came in. I just want to take this real quick. Todd, can you talk how you did this for this weekend program as a case study? Specifically what, Brian? And so what specifically are you talking about? How I did what for this weekend or this workshop? Keep in mind, and you could type that in there. Keep in mind, and that might be a great thing to share on Monday, but go ahead, pop it into the little question thing. Keep in mind, this was really what I would call really mainly a back end promotion for us. So we didn't run any traffic to this or anything like that. It wasn't really intended to be that way or serve that purpose. Oh, sorry about that. That was a while ago. That was a half hour ago. I don't even remember what I was covering. And so all good. But if you know what it is that you were referring to, pop it in there and I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. Yeah, so this is a great question. This is an awesome question. So Brian asked, and this is right now, you're going to get the real gist. Now you're going to see the transparency of Todd in all its majestic glory right here and right now. So Brian asked, so how did I leverage the attractive solution with this workshop versus an irresistible proposition? So in the spirit of transparency, what I would say, and understand this, let me take a step back before I give you the answer so that you have some context to this, everybody. And this is important, so listen to me. So you've got to recognize that the things that we do on the front end are not necessarily the things that we do on the back end, right? And so when you're, crafting a front end campaign is very different than crafting a back end campaign. When you're talking to people that you have a relationship with and you have trust with, you've delivered the goods to before, it's very different when you're talking to people that don't know you from Adam. And so I have a very different mindset when crafting front end campaigns than back end campaigns. In the spirit of transparency, when it comes to the back end, I would say that, and when I do it, when I create the copy or write the copy for it, I would say that, for lack of a better phrase, I'm a bit more lazy. Like meaning I'm willing to, I'm on the back end, willing to leave out a number of elements that you can't leave out or should never leave out on the front end. So in the spirit of transparency, to answer your question directly, Brian, I would say that I was willing to base this entire promotion on, first of all, I'm really doing this largely for top one, my highest level clients. And so I wasn't looking the aim wasn't to sell thousands of people into this or anything like that. So I would say that I didn't develop an attractive solution. I started off just saying, hey, it's time for me to share the, A to Z copy, like my whole mindset, all the tricks, all the tactics, all the gambits, all the moves, all the triggers, all that stuff. And it is what it is. And so I didn't engineer an attractive solution meeting that criteria. And I would say that I presented a proposition that I wanted to present. And so I didn't do what I would do on the front end with a promotion. And that's why, a solution that is viable on the back end is not necessarily at all viable on the front end. Just like a proposition on the back end is not necessarily at all viable on the front end. And so to answer your question, again, just to be crystal clear, I would say I did neither with this. And was okay with that. Keep in mind, we didn't run traffic to this. There was no media spent on this, nothing like that at all. It was a back end for us. And so you're welcome. Yeah, and that's the thing, right, Ken, that that in an ideal world, and I appreciate that, in an ideal world, like, look, in an ideal world, in a perfect world, and this is a conversation for a different day, different workshop, but in an ideal world, and this was something that Mark Ford said to me over dinner, in an ideal world, you should be able to, on the back end, go to your tribe and say, I've got something helpful for you, and here is the offer for it. And they jump at it, right? Because you've built a relationship, because you've constantly delivered the goods, you've over delivered value. You should be able to do that. I would love to say that I can do all of our campaigns like that. I can't. But that is certainly the aim. It's very different from the front end, right? Very different from the front end. The back end, it's a completely different thinking, a completely different mentality than is the front end. The front end really is all about the offer first and foremost, the attractive solution, the irresistible proposition, the big idea. The reality is, done right on the back end, you don't need a big idea. Right? Like, that's the truth. Like, on back end campaigns, you don't need a big idea. You don't need a super whiz bang hook. Remember, they're higher on the awareness pyramid. The higher on the awareness pyramid you go, the more direct you can be in your marketing campaigns. And so, yeah. So hope that answers that question. So let me do this. Let me do this. And let me do this. And so now I want to talk about the campaign thesis. This is the buying belief, right? And I want to show you, I want to break this down. Those of you that have been through E5, you've heard this, just pay attention. I'm going to go through this quickly for everybody else. This is, so I said that there is one single belief that I always want prospects to have before I go into the offer. The aim of every marketing campaign that I create, the body of the campaign, is to establish that one belief. Everything that I do and say and show and present and demonstrate is there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is establish that one buying belief in the mind of the prospect. Like, I want you to think about it like this. I want you to recognize, gang, that and I've said this before and I'll say it again, and take this to heart. Ponder this after the workshop. Ponder this tonight as you're resting up for tomorrow. And that is this, that I do not, when I sit down to craft a marketing campaign, I don't think like a salesperson at all. I'm not a salesperson. I don't think like a salesperson. I don't think like even like a marketer. I don't think like a copywriter. I think more like a prosecutor, and a prosecutor who is presenting a case to a jury. And the prosecutor wants that case to be an airtight, emotional, and logical case that leads the jury to one single conclusion. Every prosecutor, they're presenting a case, and they're ultimately leading the jury to, let's say, to one belief, to the belief that the defendant is guilty of the crime and should be punished to the full extent of the law. And so everything that the prosecutor does and says and shows and presents and demonstrates in some way, shape, or form is leading the jury methodically, one piece at a time, one step at a time, closer and closer to that one conclusion, right? The good prosecutors are not going off on these meandering paths. All they're doing is just stacking belief on top of belief, evidence on top of evidence that leads the jury to see, yep, the defendant is guilty and should be punished to the full extent of the law. And it's only when the prosecutor has led the jury to that conclusion, to the conclusion that the defendant is guilty and should be punished to the full extent of the law, that the prosecutor then gives their closing arguments and their call to action. Go into the deliberation room and find this defendant guilty, right? And so that's the same exact thing that I'm doing. That's the same exact thing that I am doing, right? I'm talking to our jury, right? Our jury is our prospects, our audience. There is one belief that I want that audience to have before I go into my closing arguments, my offer, and before I give them the call to action, to buy. And everything that I do and say and show and present is there to establish that one belief, that buying belief, just like the prosecutor. And I'm trying to present an airtight, rock solid, emotional, and logical argument. And so what I want to share with you now is how you formulate that buying belief. What is that buying belief that you want to lead prospects to accept before your offer? What is it that you're trying to establish in the mind of the prospect, the one overarching buying belief? Understand that just like with the prosecutor is ultimately their ultimate aim, the ultimate belief is that the defendant is guilty and should be punished to the full extent of the law. That is the ultimate belief, the one buying belief, if you will, that they are trying to create in the mind of the jury. But along the way, there are other sub-beliefs that they're going to have to establish. Maybe they're going to have to establish the belief that the defendant had a motive. And so they're going to claim the defendant had a motive, and then they're going to offer proof, evidence, support of that. Then they're going to say the defendant was, right? So then they're going to establish in the mind of the jury the defendant had a motive. Okay. Next thing, maybe they have to establish the fact that the defendant had a violent tendency, right? And so they're going to claim that the defendant had violent tendency, and then they're going to show proof, evidence, support of that. And then they established that belief, and they might go methodically one step at a time, right? The defendant was at the scene of the crime. They're going to make that claim, and then they're going to give evidence, support, proof of that. Then they establish that belief, right? And so methodically, piece by piece, what they're doing is, right? So the defendant had a motive. Yep, I believe it. The defendant had a violent tendency. Yep, I believe it. The defendant was seen at the scene of the crime. Yep, I believe it. Boom, boom, boom. Check, check, check. When those things are checked off, right? When the right beliefs are checked off, they lead to this guy's guilty. This guy is guilty and should be punished to the full extent of the law. And so everything that the prosecutor does is one at a time. Boom. Claim of a belief, proof, evidence, claim of a belief, proof, evidence, claim of a belief, proof, evidence. All together, once accepted, yep, check, 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 boom. Thesis accepted, right? Like the guy's guilty, should be punished to the full extent of the law. That's when the prosecutor closing argument, right? So as you can see, boom, 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 boom. For us, closing argument, offer, right? So here's how you can get it. Here's how you can do it, right? And so I want to show you how you formulate that, that exactly. Jerry Spence, great, couple of Jerry Spence books on the shelves back there. So I want to show you how you do that. Excuse me, how you formulate that. Simple. There are three pieces, right? There's a lot of different ways to potentially do this. This is the approach that I use. This is the approach that I train our clients on. There are three pieces to the campaign thesis. Number one is statement of superiority, right? Statement of superiority. We're going to claim superiority in some area for the mechanism. So we're basically going to claim that the best way, the fastest way, the easiest way, the most consistent way, the safest way, the cheapest way, whatever it may be, which we're going to talk about in just a second, to experience the primary promise is with the unique mechanism, is with this framework, this system, this approach, this methodology, right? This is ultimately how we're forming this thesis, this single statement that we're going to use as our North Star, as our guiding light. So I do this at the beginning to identify what is the one belief that I need my jury to have by the end of my case. What is the one belief that I need my prospects to have before I introduce the offer? I'm going to write it out as a campaign thesis. It's not copy. It's what I'm going to use, right, as my guiding light. Now, when I am writing copy, when I'm writing the copy, and we're using all the tactics and triggers and techniques and gambits and things that we're going to talk about, the language patterns tomorrow, it's all steering towards that North Star. Along the way, I'm prodding emotions. I'm establishing certain beliefs, right? I'm offering proof. I'm making claims. I'm stating benefits. I'm giving contrast, right? All leading to this one North Star, which is the acceptance of this campaign thesis. Everything that I'm doing, right, and why I'm doing it in some form or fashion is leading the prospect to the acceptance of this one statement, just like the prosecutor is doing. And so we've got the primary promise, which we've already talked about. We've got the unique mechanism, right, which we already talked about. I want to talk about the statement of superiority. And so this is rather simple, but there are some nuances to this. So number one, you've got to claim superiority in some aspect. in something, right? If you, it's either, you either got to claim superiority in terms of speed, in terms of ease, in terms of consistency, reliability, in terms of cost, in terms of effectiveness. You've got to claim superiority in something. How do you claim superiority in one or more of those areas? And that comes from your interrogation. That comes from your examination, right? You're going to know, like, do you feel that this is the best because it's the easiest? Is this the fastest? Is this the most effective? Is this the most consistent? Is it the most reliable? What is it? It might be one of those. It might be two of those, right? But you've got to identify if it's superior in terms of speed, then it's the fastest. The fastest has to be superior in terms of speed. If it wasn't superior in terms of speed, then it couldn't be the fastest, right? It would just be fast. It wouldn't be the fastest. If it's the fastest, that means it's superior in terms of speed. If it's the easiest, that means it's superior in terms of ease. If it's the most reliable, that means you're claiming superiority in reliability, right? If it's the safest, right, that means you're claiming superiority in terms of safety. If it's the cheapest, that means that you are claiming superiority in terms of cost, right? And so you have to identify what is it that you are claiming superiority for. And then it's just a matter of claiming it in this campaign thesis. Now you have to understand one other subtle point, that you can certainly have more than one. So you can have the fastest and easiest way to lose 30 pounds from your waist in the next 10 weeks, right? Like you could have something like that, the easiest and fastest, but keep in mind that whatever it is that you are claiming in terms of superiority in here, we have to then prove and establish in the body of your copy, And so you have to understand that if you say it's the easiest, fastest, and most effective way to blah, 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 blah. See, understanding that claiming superiority, taking those things is not just a matter of what would they be most excited about? Well, they'd be most excited about all of them, right? They'd be most excited about it's the fastest, easiest, most effective way to safely, right? Like the safest way to blah, blah, blah. They'd be most excited about all of those. But it makes your job that much more difficult because now you have to prove, why is it the fastest? Why is it the easiest? Why is it the most effective? Why is it the safest? You have to prove all that. Remember, this campaign thesis. This is the belief that we are going to establish in the mind of the prospect before we present the offer. And so if you claim that it's the fastest, easiest, and most effective, well, then, like, in order to establish that belief, you have to show what makes it the fastest, easiest, and most effective. You got to show what makes it the fastest, what makes it the easiest, what makes it the most effective. And so my point is that the more of these aspects of superiority you choose, the longer the campaign is going to be, the more things you're going to have to prove. And so you only want to claim superiority in the areas that you are confident you can prove. Don't claim superiority in an area that you can't prove. And so, so G said, is it better to stick to one claim of superiority? Not necessarily. No. I would say that it is better to stick to the claims of superiority in the areas that you feel overconfident you can prove, right? And so the ones where you're like, I could definitely prove this. I can show this. Like I can explain why, right? I'm going to show you a simple way to offer proof in just a second. And then you're going to see how this is carried over tomorrow into copy. And so let me show you what this looks like. So this is the kind of the template that we use with our E5 students. The statement of priority way to primary promise is with unique mechanism. The most effective way to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method, right? This is an example. The most effective way to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method. Now you'll notice in here, in this example, the most effective way to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method. I didn't say the easiest way. So I don't have to talk about, right? If I'm just establishing the belief in the mind of the marketplace that the most effective way to get new buyers every single day is with the E5 method, I didn't claim that it was the easiest way to get new buyers every day. I didn't say that. I didn't say that in this context that it was the fastest way to get new buyers every day. I didn't claim that it was the safest way or anything like that. All I claimed was most effective. Right. And so all I've got to prove is what makes it the most effective. I don't have to prove anything about speed. I don't have to prove anything about ease. And so And so this is an example of, right, if the most effective way to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method. And so if this is what, if this was the thesis that I came up with for a campaign that I was going to talk about, that I was going to write copy for the E5 method, everything that I do and say and show and present and demonstrate in some way, shape, or form is going to further the belief that the E5 method and the way the E5 method works makes it more effective than any other method, process, system out there for acquiring new buyers every day. And I don't have to talk about speed. I don't have to talk about ease. I don't have to talk about anything else. And so, right, it's all about what you claim in here, right? And remember, you have to claim superiority in some area because that's what people want, the superior solution. And so if it's not superior in some way, shape, or form, then why would prospects want it? And so over here next is, I just want to show you what it would look like if you were bringing in a catalyst. If you're using a catalyst when it's appropriate, it's very similar, but with that additional catalyst. The statement of superiority way to take advantage of catalysts so you can primary promise is with unique mechanism. The most effective way to leverage the iOS tracking update so you can get flawless marketing metrics is with pixel refreshing. Right. So all you're doing is, right. And then this would become if I was presenting or putting together copy what was I going to say? Copy for this, right? A campaign for this, everything that I do with my copy, like the overall timeline trajectory of the message is going to be there to demonstrate that the most effective way to leverage, to use, to overcome, to take advantage of the iOS tracking update, which is the catalyst in this example, so that you can get flawless marketing metrics, is with this unique mechanism. Like this becomes my guiding light, my North Star, right? And so this is how you start off with, that belief. So if we pause for a second, and if I step out of this for 1 second, so you can see how far we've come just at this point, right? Even though 60% or whatever it is, 60% through these slides at this moment of today's slides, day one slides. Understand what we talked about. We talked about like why you need to understand, right? Like why you need to understand your prospect, why you need to understand their problem, what type of problem it is, why you need to understand the pain, why you need to understand that they view the symptoms as the problem itself. We talked about how what we're ultimately doing is in the copy, you are showing them that you've got something different, a different way to solve their problem so they can feel the way they want. And that different way is superior to every other way. That becomes the thesis that we use as our guiding star, our North Star, if you will. And then everything that we do and say and show and present, I'm going to show you how to do it, say it, show it, present it, to disarm your prospect, to slip under the radar, not to trigger that hype thing, right? All that. But all that is leading to the prospect accepting that buying belief. I want them to accept that buying belief, right? Understand this. Check this out. So let me do this. Let me show you this. Let's go back here. Let's go back here. You see this right here? So let's take this. Right? So this down at the bottom, this example right here. So the most effective way to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method. So understand this, check this out. So I said that, this is the belief that I want them to have before I go into the offer. And this is the same thing that you want to do. Now, I want you to understand the enormous freaking power of this. I want you to get why this is so important and why this works like freaking gangbusters when it's done right, when you use the stuff that I'm going to give you tomorrow. Because what I want you to understand is this, that when I have led my prospect to see, right, and I know they want to get new buyers and they want to get new buyers every day, and they're tired of struggling and they're tired of seeing no sales and they're tired of wasting money on traffic that doesn't convert, and they finally want to be able to drive more traffic, to recoup all their money from traffic, to grow their customer list, to make more money, blah, 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 all that, right? Right. They want to do that. And when I show them and prove to them through my body copy in a way that is believable, that's understandable, that is emotional, that is logical, that demonstrates what makes it different and superior in that it is most effective. And I lead prospects to see that the most effective way for them to get new buyers every day is with the E5 method, this unique mechanism. Before I've ever gone into the offer, and this is same applies for you when you do this, before you ever go into the offer, they want the unique mechanism. People, they want the E5 method. They want the E5 method because they now understand, they've accepted, they see, they get on an emotional and intellectual level, on an emotional and logical level, what makes the E5 method the most effective way to get new buyers every day, which they want. And so now they want the E5 method. And the beauty is when done right, remember, your unique mechanism is only available from you. They cannot get it anywhere else. You have just created a marketing message that creates an all roads lead to you, right? They now want the unique mechanism. They see the value in the unique mechanism. They see it as the most effective way to get new buyers every day. And so they want the unique mechanism. Now, when you segue into the offer, they are pre-sold. They're pre-sold on the mechanism. They're pre-sold on the mechanism. Your offer is their vehicle to get the unique mechanism, to benefit from the unique mechanism, to use the unique mechanism. And your offer is the only place that they can get that unique mechanism. So you've created an all roads lead to you. You've pre-sold them. You've turned their desire for a result, their desire to get new buyers every day, into demand for your product, because you took that desire and created demand for the mechanism, and the mechanism is only available in your offer. And now when you wrap it and present it in an irresistible proposition, that's why you're able to see double-digit sales conversions. And so that is the power of what it is that we talked about. And so, and so let me see here. And so let's see something here. I just want to see, let's see this. Let's do this. So we're just about at 5 o'clock. The next section that we're going to go into is what we're going to do is we're going to stop now, and we will just cruise like crazy tomorrow. And so the next section that we're going to go into is hooks, themes, and ideas. We're going to go through avoiding the categorical imperative. We're going to go through mental opt-out. We're going to go through the things that the hook needs to trigger. We're going to go through the hook rule of one. We're going to go through the foundation of a hook, the hook checklist. We're going to go through finding the seeds of hooks. We are going to go through, let's see, we're going to go through the lead objective. We're going to go through the big 4 feelings for the lead. We're going to go through, we've got a lot to cover. And so, yeah, we're going to, cause I want to, the hook section, let me see something. You guys want to do one more? You want to do one short section? Want to do one short section, or you want to stop for the day? Yes. Okay, cool. You got it. Okay. So I'm going to skip ahead, and I'm going to skip ahead. So Ken said, let's not rush tomorrow. We're not going to rush. Don't worry. This is a short section because this is a big overview. And so what I want to do is, I'll show you my screen. So let's do this. All right. So check this out. I want to talk to you about the lead. Now, we're not going to go through, the lead is obviously, as you know, the first 350, 400, 500 words. I'm not going to go through all the different lead types, because what I'm going to show you or give you is my go-to lead approach. There's a lot of different things that you can do in terms of the different lead type from direct to indirect, story to offer. Like there's a lot of different lead types. The reality is I'm going to show you my go-to on the front end. And I want to point out a couple of key things. So when we're talking about the lead here, what we are talking about is we're talking about the opening of your campaign. I don't care whether it's a video sales letter, whether it's a long form sales letter, whether it's a webinar, right? There's always a beginning. There's always an opening. There's always a lead. And the role of the lead is very specific. There is a very specific task of the lead. I already shared with you guys and gals that the head looks to justify what the heart wants, right? The head looks to justify what the heart wants. And so we always in marketing speak to the heart first. We always quote unquote sell to or market to or talk to or convince, persuade the heart first, because the head will look for justification for what the heart wants. And so the number one objective of the lead, the opening of your campaign, is to set the emotional hook, What I mean by set the emotional hook is get your prospect emotionally excited. And they get emotionally excited by the idea of a different way to give them the result that they want. Don't overthink it. Do not overcomplicate it. When I say set the emotional hook, we're talking about getting your prospect emotionally excited, emotionally sold, emotionally bought in, right? Emotionally bought in. I want them to say, this sounds amazing. Now prove to me that it'll work and prove to me that it'll work for me. That's ultimately what I want the prospect to say to themselves or to be thinking at the end of our lead. This sounds amazing. Like this sounds killer. This sounds off the charts. Like if this is legit, I'm sold, but prove to me that it'll work, man. And prove to me that it'll work for me. That's the type of thinking, right? And so that doesn't come about from a logical, rational argument. That comes about from what I would call, and I think it was, it might have been Michael Drummond actually on here who shared it this way. That comes about from presenting what I would call, what we now call the elevator pitch for your campaign, or really the elevator pitch for your mechanism and the payoff, right? For this, I've got a different thing and here's what it'll do for you. And here's what it'll do for you. And here's what it'll do for you, right? Like all we are doing is teasing the most exciting benefits of the mechanism. We're not giving an argument. We're not giving rationale. We're not explaining how it works, right? We're taking the most exciting stuff about the mechanism and what it does. Remember, the most exciting stuff about the mechanism, the most exciting stuff in general is always about what it will do for the prospect. We're taking the most exciting stuff about the mechanism, right? And we're bringing 2, 3, 4 of them up front. And we're leading with that. We're promising something big. We're promising a transformation. We're teasing more, right? We're telling them what it doesn't require of them, right? You'll see this in just a second, like a real example of this. And ultimately, at the end of the lead, like I said, I just want the prospect to say, wow, this sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. Now prove to me that it'll work and prove to me that it'll work for me. That's it. That's all we are trying to do. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not trying to convince. I'm not trying to prove. I'm not trying to establish the campaign thesis. I'm not trying to do any of that. I just want them emotionally like, this sounds amazing. Oh my gosh, this sounds like, right? They're not convinced. They're not convinced. They're not sold, but they're emotionally bought in. Right? Like the very first thing that we got to do is get them to emotionally buy in. And what I like to say, the analogy that I've used for years is the reason why I say it as setting the emotional hook is because if you've ever gone fishing, I've told the story before, but like fishing, like when you feel, when if you go freshwater fishing and you feel, oh man, there's a bass on the end of this bad boy or whatnot, and you just start reeling in, what ends up happening, which happened to me many times when I first, right? You start reeling in, and all of a sudden the line goes slack and the fish lets the bait, the lure out of its mouth. Why? Because before you start reeling in, you've got to set the hook. You got to set the hook, and then you reel in. You set the hook, then reel in. You don't reel in before setting the hook. Reeling in our context is presenting the argument, is giving the logical, rational support. You don't start reeling in. You don't start giving the evidence. You don't start giving the rationale. You don't start giving the logical support. You don't start delivering those elements until you set that emotional hook, until you get them excited emotionally about what this can mean and do for them. Wow, this sounds awesome. Now, prove to me that it'll work, and prove to me that it will work for me. Now, a simple way to think about this, right? And if we talked about nothing else, you could go legitimately, you can go and do this, because there's no real science to the lead per se, right? Teasing the most exciting benefits, right, of the mechanism. But a copywriter or a copy chief from Agora by the name of Kyle Milligan, I got to give credit where credit is due. I think he articulated what you want to cover in the lead. He talks about this in the context of the entire campaign, but this is really most appropriate for you guys in the lead. He summed it up like this. What you want to convey, or what you want to tap into with the teasing of the benefits up front, is new, easy, safe, and big. And what he's really talking about here is, right, like, this is a new and different way. This is new and different way from what it is that you've tried before. So we're immediately answering the question, what's different about this, right? A new and different way to experience the outcome, what we've already talked about. He also said, right, that secondary to that is only. That is when you have if you have an unaddressed root root problem, like if you have a right, like, this is the only way to do that. This is the only way to take advantage of XYZ. This is the only way to solve LMNOP. So it could be either or. I tend to look for new and different, right? New and different. It's got to be in the lead. Next is easy. All right. Easy. Another version of that, the kind of the sister to that, is anybody. Anybody could do this. And so, right, those two are not necessarily the same, right? But oftentimes, right, like, I might not be able to say that that E5 method is easy, because it's not easy. And so I'm not going to say that it's easy if it's not easy, but it's certainly something that anybody can do, right? Any marketer can use this. Any marketer willing to put in the effort can reap the rewards of this. And so you want some form or fashion of either easy or anybody can do this in the lead, right? Safe and predictable, meaning that this isn't a fly by night thing. Like, this is producing results. You can bank on this. You can rely on this. You can expect that this is going to continue to work for you. Safe in their world comes from, he comes from the financial investing or financial publishing background. And so that's more, safe investment. This is more about, this is a reliable process that'll produce consistent results for you. It's not like a maybe, it's not an if. In other words, you can feel confident that you will experience success from this. And then the last one is big and fast. And I would say that, right, it's either a big result, big outcome, big transformation, big change, right? Or you talk about speed, right? Like how quickly you can experience results. And so this idea of new, easy, safe, and big, when I go back to this bad boy over here, think of it as your elevator pitch, teasing out the most exciting benefits. And that's all we're doing in the lead. We're not explaining, like, we're not getting into the argument portion. We're not getting into the logical portion. All we're doing is setting the emotional hook, and we're leveraging in some capacity these big four feelings, right? Or a mix of these. Now I'm going to show you an example of a campaign that I wrote that lives this out, that lives and breathes this. I'll show you one example. I'll probably show you another example tomorrow, just to drive home this point. But before I do, I want to make one additional point, because you're going to see this in the example that I'm about to show you. This is a quote from Winston Churchill, and it says, if you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it again, then hit it a third time, a tremendous whack. The reason why I shared this in here is because what you're going to find in your lead really in your campaigns in general. And we're going to cover this tomorrow. I'm going to remind you of this tomorrow, but we have the idea of repetition. Repetition is good. Being repetitious is not. So being repetitious, I'm going to talk about tomorrow, right? Because that's word choice. And right, repetition is good. What am I saying here? I'm saying that you want to continue to drive home the main point, the main promise, the main outcome, the main idea over and over and over and over and over. Don't think just because you said it once that that's enough and that they're going to get the point. You drive it home over and over and over. The key is that we want to leverage repetition so that we never veer too far away from the thing that is most exciting to them, but we don't want to be repetitious. Repetitious comes from saying the same thing over and over. Repetition means we're driving home the same idea. Being repetitious means we're driving home the same idea with the same words. And so we can drive home the same idea without being repetitious by changing the words that we use. And so what I want to show you is I want to show you an example. Now, some of you maybe have seen this, maybe have gone through this. I'm going to show you this bad boy, and then I'm going to take questions, and then you guys are outie. And so let me bring this up for you because I want to walk you through this very quickly. And I've done this walkthrough for my own team. I've done this walkthrough a number of times. And so I'm going to do this quick, but I want to show you guys. Let's do this. Let's do this. So number one, and I'm going to do this very quickly. So number one, what I want to show you guys is this. So I want to show you that if you look at this right here, see where it says, hi, my name is Todd Brown right here. This is the, this, I would say right here is the end of the lead, right? So this is the end of the lead right here. Once I introduce myself, then we're going into the introduction and then the credentializing or the why you should listen to me kind of thing here. And so you'll see that that I never introduce myself at the start of any front end campaign. And so how do I turn this thing off? There we go. So I never introduce myself at the start of any campaign. Why? Because they don't care about that. They don't know me from Adam. And so what they want to know is what is this going to do for me? I need to set the emotional hook before I credentialize myself because they don't care what I know or who I am or what I've done until they know about what this is going to do for them. Now, if you look at this, what you're going to see over here, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see if I can bring up this crazy color over here. So what you'll see is, let's do this. So a few things that I want you to see over here. This campaign, I don't know, this could be, I don't even know, a year and a half old or something like that. Maybe now at this point, I don't even remember, but I want you to see a couple things. Number one, notice the word new, easy, fast, right? Over here, fast, over here, me showing in just days, over here, taking those big four and putting it up front. Number two, what I want you to see over here is I want you to see this idea that you see this, borrow a bestseller. This is the idea of, this is an implied unique mechanism, right? And then this is, call it, payoff over here. And so we've got unique mechanism and we've got payoff. And then you see this over here. Let me just do this. Let me do this. 1 second. All right, let me do this. Where is it? Whoops. Let me do this right here. If you can see this, right? Anybody, this will work for you no matter what product or service you sell. And by the way, I think if I'm not mistaken, did I see Kyle do a breakdown of this campaign and that's what got him on my radar? I can't remember. But what I want you to see here is this. Check this out. So here is the beginning, this really too is all the lead, but I want you to see this right here. So this is where we're going to start. right? And you're going to see that it goes right to here. So a very short lead. I don't know how many words this is, but I want you to notice what it is that I'm doing here. So number one, this may sound crazy, but it's working like nothing I've seen before. And so, right, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. I've got a first sentence that is incomplete. It starts to serve as this, quote unquote, slippery slope. It's working like nothing I've seen before. Also, if you scroll back here, you can see a couple things. There's curiosity at play because they don't know what this, what does that mean? Borrow a bestseller. But it's working like nothing I've seen before. What is working like nothing I've seen before? Got to continue to read on. Choose any best. Now watch what I'm doing here. This may sound crazy. It's working like nothing I've seen before. Choose any best-selling book from any author and you can borrow it and fill your business with new customer sales in as little as 5 days. Notice now, by the way, that I said the same thing. I said the same idea right here, and I'm already saying it right here again. I'm just saying it in a different way. I'm not using the same exact words, but I'm communicating the same idea over here. Choose any best-selling book from any. I got a little bit more specific in as little as 5 days. Speed, right? So speed over here. And now I'm unpacking it more. And you keep 100% of the money. You can use a borrowed bestseller campaign with new books, old books, classics, even books which just hit the shelves. It doesn't matter. Pick any one, borrow it, and fill your business with a surge of fresh buyers. So look at this, right? Flooded with new customers, thousands of new buyers, really saying the same thing, just saying it a little differently. Fill your business with new customer sales, saying it a little differently. Same idea over here. Fill your business with a surge of fresh buyers. Repetition, not being repetitious. Borrow it and fill your bit. And you can do it for as long as you want to continue to drive more and more sales. Start small, start big, however you want. The borrowed bestseller campaign is the perfect advertising method for you if you're short on time, don't have a product yet, don't feel like creating a new product, or just want the hefty credibility boost of borrowing a bestseller. This will get you new customer sales like nothing you've seen before. And you can do this no matter what niche you're in, what product or service you sell, or whether you're a new entrepreneur or grizzled veteran. Anybody. You don't need an email list. You don't need any joint venture partners. You don't need any social media following. You don't need any special connections or anyone's permission or approval. In fact, best-selling authors will love you for it. Best part of all, launching a borrowed bestseller is so easy and fast. You can start seeing sales in as little as a few days, but you may want to jump on this now before one of your competitors beats you to the punch and borrows the perfect bestseller for your type of business. Boom. End of lead. Hi, my name is Todd Brown. You'll notice that I didn't prove anything in here. I didn't explain anything in here. All I did over here was tease the benefits, was set the emotional hook. All I wanted folks to say right at this point was, wow, this sounds awesome. Like, show me how this works. Show me that this will work for me. Like, all right, give me the details. Give me the deets, so to speak, right? Give me the deets. Let me know, show me how this thing is going to work. Prove to me that this thing is going to do what you say it is. I'm curious. I've never heard this before. There's a lot of curiosity at play because I don't know what this bad boy is, right? There's big payoff. There's a lot of, grow your business fast, new customer sales in just days. It's easy and fast to get thousands of customers. This will work for you no matter what you do. And then, right, it's working like crazy. Over here, you keep all the dough. You can use it for almost any kind of book. Fill your business with a surge of buyers. Do it for as long as you want. Start big, start small. You see how all it's doing is just creating more and more excitement. And that's it. That's all it is doing, is creating more and more. How do I get rid of this thing? Gosh. Okay. And so hopefully that makes sense. I know that there are questions. I'm going to do one more thing here. I believe that I'm just going to cover this real quick because this is it. And then I'll take the questions. I already said story leads can be killer, but they're usually either boom or bust. Beware. The prospect must be able to see themselves in the story, and done correctly, a story lead isn't just a pattern interrupt. Problem solution lead. If you're not going to go with my go-to, which is, you can see it's not a story lead, nor is it problem solution lead. When you use a problem solution, when you start with the problem, when you're dealing with unresolved, distress, when you're starting with pain, and you start with the problem, you agitate the problem, and then you get to the solution. Don't labor on the problem. In other words, the mistake that I see folks make when they use a problem solution lead is they stay on the problem way too long. Hit the problem, agitate the problem, meaning show the prospect where the problem is going to lead them if they do not resolve it or do not take care of it properly, and then get to the solution. The hope comes from the solution. The prospect already knows the problem that they have. You just want to let them know that you know it. You want to agitate it a little bit, show them that, right, if they don't fix it, what could happen, and then you want to get to the solution. So just because it's problem, agitate, and then solve doesn't mean that it's 33%. You want to hit the problem fast, agitate it fast, get to the solution, and the bulk of your time you want to be focused on the solution. And so with that, let me do this. Let me go over here and let me see this. And so okay. So are there any nuance changes for the lead if it's written for a sales letter? If it's a written sales letter or a VSL? No, I don't. I mean, look, could you make the case for nuances? I'm sure I could make the case for nuances, but I wouldn't overthink it. Like, the reality is no. The reality is that many VSL long form sales letters, like when they, are identical. Like, there's no difference. The copy is identical. And so, no, I don't think that you need to have any nuance differences in terms of a VSL and a sales letter. I would just look at a VSL as a different way of delivering the same copy. And so really, and that's how I look at it. And so, do you provide any testimonials in the lead to back up the emotional copy, or do you feel testimonials are too logical? So it's a great question. So let me answer this with a nuance. And I'm going to give you a fill in the blank, Nadine, a fill in the blank template, if you will, of the go-to lead. And so when you get the PDFs and all that on Monday, you're going to get the fill in the blank. I hate to call it template because I don't want you to, but it is the perfect, funnel openings, the perfect lead. It's what it is that I go to all the time, which is I'm going to introduce, there's a new and different way. And there's a new and different way. It's true. There's a new and different way for you to XYZ. But do I provide testimonial? So number one, I may offer proof in the lead, a single proof point, or allude to a single proof point, but I'm not going to offer a testimonial. And so, right, a testimonial, which is typically from a customer, like I save testimonials, proof points, and this we're gonna talk about this when we talk about the difference between over here, the difference between, you guys can't see this, and so I'll just show this real quick. The difference between social proof and claim proof. And so a testimonial is social proof that we offer in the, that we present during the offer portion. And so we typically don't use social proof, not the typical social proof or typical testimonials throughout the marketing portion. So, but I may offer proof. If I make a huge claim, right? Like if I made a tremendous claim that early on, a tremendous promise, like early on, that I know the prospect is going to be like, what? That's ridiculous, right? Like, what was I going to say? Then I may allude to or reference a proof point, right? Like, like I might, this is the, it's true. There's a new way to lose a, a crazy amount of weight. In fact, it's being reported you can lose up to 80 pounds in the next month. Even Harvard is calling this, a crazy breakthrough. And that's not all. You can also blah, 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 blah. So I may use a proof point up front if I'm making a claim that I think the prospect is going to go, no way, like there's no way that that's true. That's ridiculous. That's nuts. That's huge. I may offer a proof point. That proof point is almost never a testimonial, because a testimonial is typically tied to the offer section. A testimonial from a client who's talking about the experience with a product, I'm going to use that strategically when I'm talking about the product. When I'm making claims about the mechanism, I'm going to offer proof about the mechanism. And so claim proof and social proof are two different things. We're going to get into that tomorrow. And so I hope that answers the question. I would not bring a testimonial up front. I'm not going to, I don't want look, let me do this. Let me do one other thing real quick. Let me show you one other thing just as a tease, and we're going to come back to this tomorrow. But if you look at this, right? So this may sound like, no, right? It's crazy. It's working like nothing. You saw this lead. Now look, I go through credentialize. This thing, you see the bar, it works every time. You can instantly do this. You instantly do this. You enjoy this. You gain this. You get this. It's a little known customer generating move quietly used by the big dogs. Just as a side note, what is a little customer generating move? The borrow a bestseller. You'll see over here, right? Borrowed bestseller campaign. This borrowed bestseller campaign, borrowing a bestseller, is the unique mechanism. And now if you look at this, right, it's used by the big dogs. I wish I could say I invented it. I didn't. I stumbled across it. It's used by some of the biggest mailers. Monster List. Here's an example. Here are more examples. Here's an example. Why am I showing you guys this right now? I'm showing you guys this because if you look at this campaign, right, they simply borrow them. They like them. Watch this. They're using a borrowed bestseller to sell the books just a bit below full retail. Think about it. There's no writing a product, right? No, the positioning, you get PR and buzz already created. Most of the copy's already written for you. If that's not a beautiful marketing opportunity, I don't know what is. What is a beautiful marketing opportunity? Using the borrowed bestseller campaign, right? I was stunned to see there are hundreds of bestsellers you can borrow right now on every topic. All of these bad boys, most of which on Amazon are $24. You can get them for 50 cents to $3. Here is examples, proof, right? I actually use this approach with a campaign for Robert Cialdini. You don't need any, blah, blah, blah. You don't need any special connections. Here, this is an example of, it was selling on Amazon. I was able to get it right for, $3. I sold it for $16.95 as part of a thing. It worked so well. It brought me customers for the next 11 weeks straight. Here is my buddy Russell Brunson saying it's genius. You can generate now all of this time, right? What am I talking about? What am I convincing the audience of? I'm not talking about the product. I'm not pitching a product. What am I talking about? I'm getting buy-in on the mechanism. I'm getting buy-in on this idea of borrowing a bestseller and using a bestseller to work. And I'm giving proof of who else uses it and what you get with this, and that this is accessible no matter what market you're in. And here are examples of that, right? And you don't need any special connections. And here's the result that I got when I did it. And here was the result that we had. And here was the praise that we got. And right, like if you're thinking how to do this, it's simple. It's 3 steps. This is how you can use it, what you can do with it. Here's examples. If you are, you can borrow a fitness bestseller or personal development or investing. If you're in this market, a relationship bestseller, if you're in this market, or this. Fact is, no matter what product or service, there's opportunities here. What am I doing? Borrowed bestseller campaign. I'm convincing of the mechanism, not the product. I'm not pitching a product. I'm getting buy-in on the mechanism, right? And there are these opportunities are available to you right now. This is selling for $18.77. You can get it for $3. This one, $13.65, $1.50. All these examples right here. So here's what to do now. Now I go into the offer, right? And so now here's your chance to get this. Right now, I go into the actual product. But up to this point, right here, you can look at the little scroll bar down here. Right up to this point, all the way down, all of this was simply about the unique mechanism. All I was doing was getting buy-in on the unique mechanism. I set the emotional hook in the lead right up to this point right here. introduced myself, why you should listen to me, and then I went through and I proved what makes this an exciting and massive opportunity to grow your business, and who's using it and how it's being used, and the beauty, the benefits of this bad boy, and what it can do for you, and how it's all accessible to you right now. And then I went through and I gave the offer. And so exactly, Mike said, he said it perfectly. I'm convincing of the mechanism, not the product. Before I I want to get buy-in on the mechanism, like I said earlier, because once I get buy-in on the mechanism, I have pre-sold the product, because the only place that they could get the mechanism is the product. The difference is that when I'm getting buy-in on the mechanism, I'm not pitching a product. So it doesn't require me to sell. It doesn't require me to pitch. So the prospect sales filter isn't up. Right? Prospect sales filter isn't up because I'm not talking about a product. I'm talking about a method. And I'm basically just trying to say, like, look, here's a great method. Here's a different way for you to do XYZ, for you to reap XYZ. Let me prove to you that this is a great method, right? I'm not trying to sell you a product here, right? I'm convincing you of a method. Then when I convince you of the method, I'm able to say, and like, that's why I decided to put together this training. And so if you want this, if you want to learn how to do this, here's your opportunity to get it. And that's why you get prospects that are thankful for the opportunity to buy when you do it that way, and say, and so I'll credit you, Mike, for that. And so I dig it. And so Jan said, Todd, how would this work if I would apply this on a landing page for an opt-in to a VSL webinar or resource for someone that is going to book a call, booking a call? Would I still use a lead and the proof with the bullet points? So no. So what I want you to think about, what I want you to understand is that's a bit of strategy, Jan. And so think about this. Every page has its purpose. Every page serves a role. The page of an opt-in or registration is to get the qualified opt-in or registration. In other words, we're not just trying to get the email opt-in for the sake of getting the email opt-in. We want the right folks to opt in, and we want those folks to know what it is that they're opting in for. And we want those folks to opt in because they want the thing that we're talking about. And so the opt-in page is just about really presenting for the most part, this isn't, and every industry is a little different depending on what's out there, but is the promise and the mechanism. Like, the reality is, I love ultra streamlined lead gen pages. They can be ultra streamlined when you're able to make when you're able to, like, you're able to communicate your hook, your promise, and your mechanism in a single headline. The reality is, you don't need a whole bunch of copy. When the idea is right, when the promise is right, and when there's a mechanism behind there, you don't need a whole bunch of copy. Most of the time I see, honestly, the more copy that gets added to an opt-in page, the more likely there is to be copy that talks the prospect out of opting in. The more likely there is to be copy that makes the prospect say, oh, I know what they're talking about. Oh, I've heard that. Right. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow when we talk about avoiding the categorical imperative, how, like, you want to avoid mental opt-out. And so you want to prevent that mental opt-out, meaning you don't want prospects to feel like, I've seen this, I've heard this. And so the likelihood is, the more copy that you add to a page, the more likely you are to say something that's going to talk a prospect out of opting in. We're talking about the opt-in page. And so I'm a big fan of going with, streamlined opt-in pages, oftentimes with a headline complex and a call to action button, honestly. And so there you go. That is all she wrote for today. Little bit over. Appreciate you guys hanging out to do that extra session. So rest up. Tomorrow, we're going to be back here at 9:30. We're going to go 9:30 again to probably 5:30-ish. No doubt. Tomorrow, we've got a tremendous amount to cover. We're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't cover today. And then we're going to get into all the stuff all the triggers, the language patterns. We're really going to start, and we're going to focus on, word choice, sentence structure. We're going to focus on what word choice makes for good copy, effective copy. Like, now we're going to, tomorrow is where the rubber meets the road. And so now we're going to start to write copy with this foundation of today and we're going to cover stuff in the morning, the foundational stuff. Then we're going to start to write copy, and it's all going to rest back on these foundational principles. But you're going to see tomorrow, like, again, word choice, sentence structure, flow, language patterns, framing, some tactical wizardry, if you will. And so you're in for a treat. And then, of course, if you haven't marked it on your calendar, mark it now. Monday night from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time is our open Q&A. That's when you'll be able to just fire away. Like, I can't wait for that. No slides, just us, me, you, questions, answers, good stuff, good gems. And so you guys and gals are outie. Proud of you for hanging in so long. Not an easy thing to do with me talking at lightning pace, throwing stuff out at you, but I'm proud of you guys and gals. I will see you tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Let's rock and roll. Everybody have an amazing night. God bless you guys. See you tomorrow.